Okay, so now that we have this sample block site, okay, we're going to use this guy to illustrate how we can use. Remember, we are working on backend, even though we are designing. The major aim of this class is backend and how we can communicate with our backends. Okay, so since we are now using jQuery, we are going to use jQuery to work on the sign up form, at the same time work on the register form, the sign up and the login rather, sorry. Okay, so this is login.php. Already have an account, login.php. Okay, so we use our jQuery to communicate with our backend to work the login and the sign up page. So first thing first, we're going to work on the sign up, please. Okay, so the first thing is the sign up. Okay, now let's say we have our full name, our email, our password and confirm password here. Okay, so there's something I would like to do here. On this our register, what? Okay, so okay, use an input for this. Okay, let me simply use a button. I prefer, though it's the same thing though, but I prefer using button. Okay, so let me make it a button. Okay, since I didn't touch the class, we'll use an icon on it. Use a plus. Okay, say register. I think that was there, right? Okay, register. Okay, let's capitalize it, uppercase. Okay, so it, yes, change the whole thing to uppercase. So now what I want to do is I can make the button disabled. Okay, and when I make the button disabled, we'll have to remove some of all the colors.
So when you disable the button,
it will not submit the form. Okay, so we can, this is based on your preference or depending on the kind of site you're building though. Okay, now but the major thing I want to do here now is when your confirm password or when your details are not complete, this button will remain disabled. Okay, this button will remain disabled.
okay, when you don't put all of them,
Yes, it will remain disabled. Yes. Okay. So now judging from the classes here, he said on hover PG red. Okay, we're going to leave the hover out of it. So when it's enabled, we'll just Where did you add the border?
Yeah, border red.
Border red, okay. I'm still going to do away with the border. Okay. So what we're going to do is, you also have another hover there. Okay. Okay, I think we actually need the border, or just use a small border. Okay, for it. What's the original text color? It's red now. Okay. So I think it's okay like this. Okay, but when everything is okay, we change the button to green, telling you that okay, you can now register. Okay. So now we can still do that hover something on it if we want to, but that one now will be on our jQuery. Okay, so first and foremost we have to make sure that jQuery is connected. Is it connected? No. Okay, so we have to connect our jQuery to it. So we say script source, we go back to our JS folder. Okay, I think we have jQuery on the JS folder. Okay, so our jQuery is now connected here. So since our jQuery is now connected, now this is what we'll do. Okay, I'm going to create a method here. Okay, now why I want to do it as a method, I just want to create it so that at different points in time we can be using the method to check if everything is okay, if all the feeds are okay. So we have to do the register first. Okay, so what you will say is just we should just forget about the validation and go straight to the submitting of data. So if you have to forget about the validation, fine, but somehow, okay, since you have required here, okay, that means the validation can be handled with the required. So because on submit of the form will only be when the necessary values are being added. Okay, so let's just go with the flow like this, if you say so. Okay, so now the first thing first is I'll give my form an ID or a name. So I'll simply say ID. Is the gen covered? Okay, yeah, close. So we'll give the form an ID. So let's call it form register. Okay, Faith, hope you're with me. Because this is not just like, it's like something new that I want to do. Since Solomon suggested forget validation, I just wanted to show you how you can validate with jQuery. But even at that, we might do other things that will require validation. So let's just go straight to the point. Okay, so that we can be able to achieve the registration and the login. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we are going to check the unsubmit event of the form. That means when the form is being submitted, then we'll collect this data, then send them to the backend to be stored. Okay, so what we'll do here now is I will simply use jQuery to make reference to the ID. Of course, you understand this, right? So dot on, that is the event listener. So So we'll listen to the the submit event. That means when the form is submitted. Okay, then we create a function, okay, that will handle the event. Okay, then the first thing we do is to prevent the default event from firing. Then after that, we'll now accept all the data that we are submitting. Okay, so like one of our class, we said we can just declare an object. Okay, let's just say form data is equal to an object where we can just place the keys based on our form. Let's say for instance we are accepting full name. I just called it f name there now. So full name will now get its value from an input that have an ID full name. Please, I would like you to maintain your cases. Okay, when you are building, please maintain your cases. So full name hash full name, because it's an ID. We are targeting the ID now. Okay, yes, since we are not using name, that's why I forgot that. But remember, if you want to use name, you can still use name. Okay, if I want to use name, I can simply say use the attributes. You can use an attribute of an element, that is call the element name input. Okay, then you put a square bracket, you say that have a name is equal to full name. Okay, let me use this one here just to remind you that you can still do this. Of course, you understand what I mean here. This is the name of the element, which is the input, but you are saying the elements that have an attribute name full name, which is this guy. So you can use this dot value. Okay, that means you are assigning the value of this guy into this one. Okay, so sorry, it's supposed to be a comma because we are inside an object. Okay, so now the same way we can still say we're dealing with the email here. Instead of using the elements and the attributes, yes, that's what I want to do. I'll use an ID on this. Okay, so use ID so that you understand that we can do this, we can do this. So any which way is okay. So we also have the password. Okay, now the password is another thing on its own. Do we need to send the confirm password? It depends on what we are doing actually. In some cases you might want to send the confirm password and do the check on your PHP, but you can still do the check here in your JavaScript. Okay, do the check here in your JavaScript before sending the data. Okay, so if I want to do the check here in my PHP, that means somewhere here, before I even do this, I'll first of all do an if statement. Okay, that means if the check, okay, if the check here, okay, is complete, then before I do this, else I can just send, let's say we don't have any other means than alert or console, so let's just alert something like password mismatched. Okay, that is the confirmed password and the password are not the same, but if they are the same, then we can go ahead and submit the form. Now the check here, now that means for us to check here, we have to check the value of the password against the value of the confirmed password. Okay, you have to check the value of the password against the value of the confirmed password, like this. Okay, and there's something we need to do here again, because if both of them are empty, they are the same. You understand? So we have to do something like this. If the password is the value, in fact, let's make it easier. Let's declare variable for them. Okay, so declare jQuery variable. Let's say password, okay, is equal to this. Let me paste this. Then confirm password, let me call it C password, okay, is equal to this. Okay, so let's just say we have this. Okay, so if we use variables for them now, it will be easier for us to check if, okay, the first check, let me use parentheses to differentiate them. If password, okay, dot length, okay, dot length is greater than 0, okay, and okay, this. Okay, so what I'll do here is I'll simply use a bracket to separate them. So this whole thing is one evaluation, and this whole thing is another evaluation. Okay, now let me yes, let's just, if it's greater than 0, that means what we'll do here now, look at, let's just log this so that you understand it better. Okay, let's log the password dot length here. Okay, so if I open my console, okay, so if I put something like password here, okay, these guys are required, so let's just put something. Let's just put something there. So click this. Okay, sorry, I disabled the button because we said we should forget about validation. So let's remove the disable. Okay, so with this, sorry, I have an undefined variable. Length, okay. Refresh this. Okay, we have 4 because we have 4 characters here. Okay, so if I increase it, maybe either 2 to be 6. So if there is nothing on it, to be okay, required actually. So I forgot that we placed the required here. So since we placed the required here, okay, meaning there's never a time that it will be 0. You understand? HTML will automatically handle the required. But assuming we did something like, okay, we want it to not exceed a certain number of characters, we can simply just use this guy to do that check too. But that one I will need another kind of check, but that is a nested if statement, because we have to first of all check if it's greater than the particular character. Let's say you want the characters of the password to be 6 and above. You understand? So you have to check first if the password length is greater than or equal to 6. If it's not greater than or equal to 6, then you can tell the user maybe your password not strong, it must be up to 6 and above or something like that. Okay, then if you want to also check the characters on the password, like you want one to be a character, you want one to be a number, things like that, we have to work on the string, that is string manipulation. Okay, so let's just go straight to the point here now. Since we understood that there's never a time our password will be less than 0, so that means we don't need this check. That is what it implies. Okay, so we can just go straight with this. Okay, so if this is equal to this, that means since we have variables here, that means we can still use the variables. Hope you know You can leave it like this, it will work. Okay, you can still use the variables, it will work. So let me just comment the variables since we are no longer using them.
But what about that empty column?
It will not be empty because of this required. That's what we just checked now.
Okay.
You get? So at any point in time it will be 1 and above. So any other check we want to do, assuming we want to check, maybe it must be up to 6 or it must be up to 5 or it must be up to 8, and that's why you now require another check. Okay, so at least the password will be there. Okay, so that is it. So when we have this, okay, so then this data will now be what would use. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do here now is, since we've gotten the data that is required, now what we'll do is we'll now create an AJAX request. Okay, so .AJAX, okay, sorry, so in the .AJAX we have the first this thing, the first key there will be what? The type, which should tell us the type of HTTP request I want the AJAX to send. Okay, now sending data like this, usually is more preferably you use post methods. Okay, then the next thing is the URL. Okay, now the URL we're sending it to, we don't know yet. That means we have to create a particular endpoint for it. Okay, an endpoint that will accept the data that we are submitting. Then the data, okay, that we're submitting will be these are form data here. Okay, so these are the data that we're submitting. Okay, now the data type, which is how we need the response. Okay, we need it in form of what? JSON, right? So we need it to come in form of JSON. Okay, then on success, that means when the request is successful. Okay, now create a callback function with a response. Okay, okay, so this is for now. Let's just log the response, what we got back from the response. Okay, so now to create an endpoint for this. Okay, so our backend codes are here. So we are going to create all our backend scripts here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we'll create a file, and the URL to the file will serve as our endpoint. Okay, so we'll create a new file here. Let's call it register, or let's just call it add underscore user dot php. Okay, so this file now is where we'll write our script to add the user to the database. Okay, so the first thing we need is to enable the connection on this file. Okay, we already have the connection set on this connection.php. Everything is set, and we're going to use this object of this MySQLi class. Okay, now are we together? So in this our connection, we've done this before now. Okay, let me just go through it again. In our connection, we said that our connection needs the server, that's the host name. Okay, which is I call the server here. Then the username to the server, your password, then the database you're working with. Okay, now let's just work with our web class database too. Okay, so it's just to check our web class database if we have what we need. Okay, so here we need I think we need full name, email, password, right? Full name, email, password. Okay, so we check our database, our web class database. Okay, Okay, I don't know why this is taking time to load. Okay, we have users here. Okay, now in our users we have avatar, we have full name, email, phone number, and bio. We don't have a password. Okay, so we are going to simply adjust this. So what I'll do, I will not remove anything from it. First and foremost, let me truncate the table, as empty the table, so that all the data in it will be gone. Okay, that's truncate. From operation you come to truncate, empty the table. So if I browse again now, no data will be left. Okay, now I'm not going to remove anything so that it won't affect the other file that we are working with, that is localhost / web class. You know, this is where we're working on. We're working with this. No, I don't want to make a duplicate. Let's work with same database. Okay, I don't want to duplicate it. We are still in the web class now, even though we are working with two different templates. It's still the same thing. Okay, so what I'll simply do is I'll update the structure of this table to fit this guy. Okay, so updating it, I'm not removing anything. So let's go to the structure. Now on the structure here we have the bio, which is null by default. That means even though if you don't have a bio, it will still store null on this feed, against this feed. Okay, now the only place we have a problem here is this phone number, because we didn't set it to null. Okay, so thank God. So now what we're going to do now is, since our sign up form does not include phone number, okay, so we are going to make either a default value for the phone number. We cannot have a default value, so what you just need to do is just to give it null at default. Okay, so we'll simply edit it by clicking on change. I just make it null by default. So when you make it null by default, automatically you see that this null constraint has been checked. So when I save this, I'll have null by default. So the only thing I need now is to add the password to it. Okay, so add a password to it. So we'll simply come here and say add one columns to table, after which field, let's say after the email, let's add a password field to it. Okay, so now for the password field, we can make it a varchar, that is a string, to receive a string, or we can make it test. Okay, anyone serve. Okay, so let's just make it varchar. Then in fact we can make it test. When you make it test, you don't need to specify the length value, but if you make it varchar, you have to specify the length value. Okay, so any which one. So let me make it test.
The user type,
Yes, but I think it also have a breaking point too, because we have test, we have medium test, we have long test. Okay, and we also have tiny test. So, and the difference should be the sizes. Okay, so that means it will have a breaking point where it can no longer take the number of characters. Then we'll have to fall to medium test. As you can see, maximum length of this, as you can see from the two tips, you see this one, maximum length of 65,000. You understand? So you watch what kind of password are you going to type that will so let's just say test and click on save. Automatically to be saved. So let's see the structure. We now have a password here. Okay, so with this now you can accommodate this. So by default, since this guy does not have a phone number, does not have a bio, we just save. It does not have an avatar. Of course we have a default avatar. Okay, so to just take the full name, the email, the password, then every other thing will be null until maybe the user updates his profile on the app. Okay, so we updated this. So since we updated this, so that means we're still working with our database. We're working with is still the web class. Okay, so working with the web class, then this is a connection object that was created, instantiated from this MySQL class, which houses all the parameters that were declared, the variables that were declared here as its parameters. Okay, so that is it. So what we're going to do now is to include the connection here, then make request to data with it. Okay, so we simply say include, then we'll call the connection. Since both of them are in the same directory, so we can just call it straight. Okay, call it directly, like, yes, they are inside there. You have to, yes, you have to locate the folder where it is created through your string here. Okay, just like your image source, your hyperreference, and how you do things like that. Okay, so that is just it. So with this, we've set up our add user so we can simply now set the address to this guy as our endpoint from our JavaScript. That is to say, on the register where we have the URL, the register is on the admin, so we have to come back from the admin, that is // come back, then enter back end. Okay, slash, we now go to add underscore user dot php. Okay, so to test this, if we are actually getting what we need, that is, if we are connected to this add user, let's just echo something like I got you. Okay, let's just echo I got you here. So what we'll now do is to test this. So that means, like I told you before now, that testing this, you have to test based on your network, not the console. Okay, you can test with the network, but since we did a console.log here, we can also see what the console brought out for us. That means we can check from the console too. But originally it is the network that we detect if that data is being sent and is being received. So if we put some data here, just like what we've done before, and we do this. Okay, okay, sorry, I did a Control Z the other time, so the disable came back. Okay, so when we submit this, tell us password mismatch, because the password we entered here is different from the password. Now these your feeds are supposed to be password feeds, please. Okay, these things are supposed to be password fields. Okay, that means type of list is supposed to be password. Okay, sorry, password. Okay, yep, pardon me. So we have to put a password. Okay, so when you click on submit, we didn't get anything from our okay, console. Okay, but from our network we have something from our network. Okay, so if you check your network, you see the request. These are the data that were sent. That is from this AJAX request. We have 3 data that were submitted to it. Okay, and these are the 3 data. Now the response we got back is I got you. But the problem we have here now is we wanted the data in form of JSON. Okay, so that's why we could not log it here. But assuming we remove this data type now, for instance, okay, if I go to my console and I send something again, let's say I send this, okay, then I click on register, it will give me I got you, because I removed that JSON. So instead I don't use that JSON, maybe I need this in form of plain text. Either I remove that data type, that it will come in form of plain text by default, or I put text here, or if you are sending back HTML from the wherever the data are coming from, you can either say HTML here. Okay, so but since we need the data in JSON format, we can still say JSON here, then return the data back as JSON encoded. Okay. So that is just it. So in the next okay, what we're going to do next is to accept the data from this form, then process them on the adduser.php and save them, then return a message back to our user interface.